Alright, so I thought I'd share with you some of my techniques about how I go using the warp tool to create some really abstract artwork. And it's really quite simple, and it's a lot of fun because there's a lot of different things you can go about doing it, or different ways you can go about doing it. So what I have here is a background layer set with black as a fill. I'm going to create a new layer above that one. I'm going to get my rectangular marquee, and I'm simply going to draw a selection right there in the middle of the document, from top to bottom, and just a little bit too wide, just not too wide. Now next thing I'm going to do is get my gradient tool, and I'm going to go over here to the gradient picker and select this copper gradient right here. And that's because I like the gradient tones in here, not necessarily the color, which I'm going to remove after the fact, but I'm just going to use that for the tones. So I'm going to hold down the Shift key and draw the selection inside that selected area. Now, deselect that, and I'm going to remove the color information by pressing Shift-Command-U. Then I'm going to change this layer's blending mode to screen, and we're not going to see an immediate effect because this is sitting on a background layer, but the dark areas, the black areas of this shape are now transparent, and it'll be noticeable when we distort it in a second. So, got that set. I'm going to go ahead and bring up my free transform, Command-T, then I'm going to hold down my Control key or right-click on it and bring up this menu and go to Warp. And here's where you can just kind of have a lot of fun experimenting. I'm just going to grab anywhere inside the shape and start pushing these around and see what kind of interesting things I might get as a result. And we'll push this over like that, maybe this over here. And you can do almost anything here and just get some really interesting abstract effects in here. So once you've got something you may like, press Enter. There it is, rendered it out. So you can see I'm getting some pretty interesting, shape here and some volume. So I'm going to actually duplicate that layer and offset it a little bit. You can see that's because it's in screen mode, we're able to see through it and have some transparency there. So I'm going to go under Edit and Transform, Flip Horizontal, which is right here at the bottom. And then you can see just by playing around, I can start to get some interesting, really abstract effects here. And doing all kinds of really cool stuff. So let's do that. And if I wanted to, let's say I'm going to turn these two off. If I can create a new layer. And let's see, do another selection. But this time, let's do a gradient that is set. So this time, let's do a gradient that is set to white. White is our foreground color. I'm going to go up here and just get a white to transparent gradient, draw from the left side, and boom, just like that. Deselect, bring up Control or Command T, bring up the free transform, and then bring up the menu to go warp. And let's just go at it again. Let's see what else kind of really bizarre things we can get out of this one. Really just kind of there's no rules here. I mean, I'm not really doing this with any predetermination. I'm just kind of going with it and see what kind of things I can get. So there's that. So if I go and duplicate that layer, and let's go ahead and flip that one horizontally, and we'll push this over like that. And what if I turn on these two other layers that we created and space those out a little bit? You can see I'm getting all these really cool ideas, and it's kind of a symmetrical design, so it kind of lends itself to some very interesting perspective. And now I can do this and create some really interesting abstract art. I can use elements of this as background pieces for other, designs I might be doing. Let's say I've got, let's go over here, turn that one on. Let's change this background color to kind of a bluish. And there you can see this could be a very interesting background piece. I can have a body of copy here or something like that, and that was done simply by creating a gradient or any kind of shape and just going in there and playing with it in the warp tool and doing all kinds of really interesting things with it. So the warp can give you a lot of advantages, and just it requires a great deal of experimentation. You can do all kinds of things with these shapes once you've got them made. You go in here and let's actually scale that down and duplicate it. Go over here and we'll flip it horizontal this time around. kind of bring them together there. If I hold down the Shift key and select both those layers, scale it in a little bit, you can see I get what could possibly be a good start of an interesting border or scroll technique. So if I merge those two together, pressing Command E, and we'll change that blending mode back again, duplicate that layer, and then flip vertical this time, I can go up there and I can start to see that I can get some really interesting border effects if I just kind of play with this a little bit more and really push it. So there's a good primer for you to get started and really create some really interesting abstract art using the warp tool. So go at it and have fun.